think it's safe to say that RMC is one of the best roller coaster manufacturers in the game. Their roller coasters are always one of, if not the best coaster in a park's lineup. But almost all of them get their kinetic energy by chain lifts. All except for one. In 2016, Dollywood took a gamble and built Lightning Rod, the first launched RMC. The only question now, was that gamble worth it? When riding roller coasters for the first time, we always set an expectation. Let's face it, we try to go in with an open mind, but at least part of us buys into the hype. It's just a fact. But rides unfortunately don't always live up to that hype. Take for example Millennium Force. It was hyped up as being the world's best roller coaster, and as a result, it sort of fell flat and disappointed many. So although I tried to keep an open mind for Lightning Rod, I couldn't. I ended up going in with the expectation of it being my number one, which, at the time, meant beating Maverick. I'm not going to go ahead and say that I was disappointed, I wasn't, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. It currently sits at number 4 for me in my overall rankings, so it clearly is a fantastic ride. It just isn't my number 1. Part of the reason, I'm sure, is directly because of the hype. I generally enjoy rides more that surprise me. Montu surprised me, number 6. Thunderhead surprised me, number 3. Storm Chaser surprised me. Storm Chaser is my favorite roller coaster of all time. So the simple fact of me having high expectations is almost already set in stone, the fact that it wouldn't be my favorite. The odds were stacked against this thing. It would have to be one heck of a monster of a roller coaster to meet my expectations. So, quite frankly, the fact that it almost met my expectations is an unbelievable feat. And that alone proves how fantastic this ride is. Unfortunately, because of how I like rides that surprise me more than rides that don't, this isn't my favorite coaster at Dollywood. That title goes to Thunderhead. Lightning Rod is the better coaster, but I just had more fun riding Thunderhead. I like Thunderhead more. Again, I got nothing wrong with Lightning Rod. I just happen to enjoy Thunderhead more. This ride is unreal. It seems unworldly to go on a roller coaster that goes up, down, and around a freaking mountain. That concept alone is unbelievable. Just wait till you hear the type of elements on this thing. One thing that surprised me was the smoothness. RMC Woodies don't exactly have the best track record with me. Goliath is pretty smooth, but it has rough patches here and there, and Outlaw Run is one of the roughest coasters I've ridden. When I went down that drop, I prepared for the worst, but it never really came. For the most part, this thing is glass smooth. There is a pretty bad rough patch after the wave turn, but thankfully it only lasts for a second or two. Other than that, all the wooden sections are phenomenal, and all the steel sections are fantastic as well. I also freaking love the theme. The entire area of Jukebox Junction is insanely immersive, and might just be my favorite spot in the park. I also got a burger at Red's Drive-In, just across from Lightning Rod, and it was fantastic. I highly recommend Red's. But as far as the theming goes, it's very light yet still extremely immersive. Also, a quick side note, not only are all the ride-ops awesome, but they are all very fast, which is always amazing. Their positivity and this ride's theming really brings this area of the park together. Now, with all of that said, let's get into the ride layout. The ride begins as you pull out of the station and head to your right. If you listen closely, you can hear engines revving. which is a really neat effect. You slowly inch towards the launch. Before you know it, that launch hits and you begin accelerating up the hillside. Those revving engines you heard seconds before are now tires screeching. You rocket up the mountain, reaching 40 miles an hour before the launch ends, and you begin coasting up the mountain. By the time you reach the top, you're at a crawl, but you still get a hint of floater on the first hill. You descend into a valley before absolutely plummeting down that first drop. I will say I was a little disappointed by the drop. I'm sure the drop was spectacular before the launch was slowed down, but now you slowly crest over and fall into a relatively shallow drop when comparing it with other RMCs. That said, it's still one unbelievable element. You pull out of the drop and into a valley. You keep ascending the hillside of the following mountain until hitting a turn that sends you flying into a wave turn. This is one fantastic element. You just sort of hang on your side and experience flowjector as you're suspended in midair. While it is for most, this isn't my favorite moment of sideways airtime on the ride. The wave turn just falls a tiny bit short of the twist and shout. You hit a valley and a pretty bad pothole before experiencing this masterpiece of an element. You curve right and get thrown to the left as you experience sideways flowjector, and it is phenomenal. The transitions in and out of the element give crazy whip, but are still very smooth. I would go as far as saying that this is my second favorite element. And no, my favorite element isn't the quad down. You curve out of the first twist and shout and fly down a hill before hitting my favorite element on the ride, the second twist and shout. The sheer amount of ejector airtime you get here is kind of scary. If I hadn't ridden Storm Chaser, this would be the strongest moment of airtime that I've experienced. It's pure insanity. Also, because you're on your side, you don't get pulled down, you get pulled to the side. This just adds more insanity to this spectacular element. You whip out of the second twist and shout and turn into a double up filled with ejector, which promptly leads you to the quad down. The quad down is interesting. It's certainly not as good as people make it out to be, but it still is fantastic. It definitely is not what I had expected. It isn't 4 unbelievable airtime moments back to back. It instead is simply 4 quick moments back to back, with the strength of the air getting stronger as you go. I think the reason people love it is not the quality of airtime, but instead how fast each moment comes. The airtime moments themselves are super quick and not very strong at first, but as you come barreling down the mountain, the length of the moments don't increase, but God, the strength sure does. The last off-axis moment is sure to hurt your thighs as you are sent flying into it. So while these moments are super fun and rapid fire, the airtime is not sustained by a long shot, and doesn't quite live up to my expectations. I personally prefer sustained air over quick bursts of ejector, even if it means sacrificing on the airtime quality, but that's just me. You are absolutely flying by the last hill in the quad down, and you keep up that speed as you hit a wicked fast turn. This turn sets you up for one of the best airtime hills on the entire ride. It's not sustained for too long, but oh my lord is it intense. I got no clue why people don't talk about this more. Not only is it more sustained than the moments in the quad down, but it also is a physically stronger moment. This moment sends you into the last element. You curve up and around before getting ejected as you slam into the brakes. Only now are you given the chance to breathe. I now want to attempt to ask the question, was Lightning Rod worth it for Dollywood? In previous years, the answer was always a resounding no, especially with Dollywood literally having to strip the track and add steel track on parts of it. But after the retrack, it seems to me that Lightning Rod's unreliable days are over. During my visit in 2021, I never had any issues with its reliability. It did not go down a single time, and from what I've heard, it's kept up that reliability. If Lightning Rod gets unreliable again, then I feel that it wasn't worth it. But if it stays on track to being reliable, I honestly feel that this thing could redeem itself. When I was there, the lines were huge, so it's clear the general public loves this ride. The lines were about the same as Wild Eagle, the massive B&M crowd pleaser. If it's pulling those levels of crowds away from Wild Eagle, you can bet that it's a winner in the public's eyes, which at the end of the day is the most important thing. So, was Lightning Rod worth it for Dollywood? Yes, I think it was worth it. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. If you've come this far, it would mean a lot if you would like the video, subscribe to me, and comment your thoughts on this review. My main trip this summer is very soon, so get ready for loads of Hershey Park and Kings Island content. With that said, I'll see all of you in my next video. Goodbye.